blank on his face. He didn't really know.
So
He didn't really know what was going on.
we're all here now if you want
Good.
to point out.
We all here now. Can we get started?
Yep.
Okay.
Mayor McPhail,
First item is a report from closed session.
yes. So you'll report out that direction was given to staff regarding proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. However, there is a motion that will need to be made that council hereby approve the payment to an employee of $291.48.
I have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Cameron, seconded by Rowe. Call the question.
So Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham, Councillor Tallier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
that is approved.
Okay, thank you. For those of us, for those of you who are joining us, welcome to our first council meeting of the new year, January 14th. We're probably going to be into these virtual meetings for the near future anyway, so please bear with us if we trip across any technical difficulties. We'll try to do our best. Next item up, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Anyone have any? Seeing none, adoption of the minutes. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on December 17th, 2020 be adopted and circulated as printed. Mover and seconder.
I have a,
Yep. Sure.
are we at the, have we done the agenda already?
Well, let me see.
We adopted it before we went into close.
Oh, okay. All right. I do have a correction, if I could, with regard to the minutes before, and then I will move it with corrections. Sorry to be so fiddly, but anyway, in item number 10.3.3, that is where we discussed the blue flag decision.
Yes.
And I really felt that since we did mention that the water samples were one of the issues, that we should really add the other issues that went into that discussion, which were staff costs to carry out public education sessions. And the total amount was several thousands of dollars for both of those items. So if I could ask for those to be added to the minutes, I'll move the acceptance with those additions.
Okay. Everybody understand that? Bonnie has moved the amended version of the minutes. Do I have a seconder? I'm seconded by Cameron. Call the question.
So Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tallier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
that is carried.
Okay. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we have staff reports, building report. Jackie, good to see you. Floor is
Thank
yours.
you. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. The year ended decently, and we've collected more fees this year than the previous year. So we're getting closer to full cost recovery for the building department. Busier year as well, with 108 permits issued versus 92 from the year before. Don't anticipate it to be too much different this coming year. The markets seem to be strong still for new housing sales and things like that. So does anyone have any questions?
Bonnie?
Yeah, if I could just, and thanks, Jackie, I did get your email yesterday. So in terms of the new regulations, it really isn't going to impact any of our projects that have been approved and that are underway?
Yeah, I don't anticipate any. There's a multi-residential project in downtown West Lorne that is allowed to keep going because it's a multi-residential, which is permitted to keep, that's under the orders, it's permitted. It's my understanding anyway. the industrial work that's not complete yet, I believe it's part of an infrastructure. So therefore it wouldn't be stopped as far as continuation for that project goes. Mostly the new projects for new residential are on hold if I haven't issued a permit already. So they wouldn't be permitted to start based on the interpretation on last year's orders via a lawyer that provided an opinion to the OBOA last year. So I think most people are under the same understanding as that. So I don't see it affecting anything. And this being January as opposed to March, a little bit better just because most people aren't looking to start construction till March or April anyway. So hopefully it doesn't impact the industry too much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jackie? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jackie. Do we have a recommendation that West Ogden Council hereby receives the report from Jackie, Building Inspector for December 2020 for information purposes? We have a mover and a seconder for that report. Moved by Tellier, seconded by Leatham. Call the question.
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tellier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
That is carried.
Thank you
Okay.
and Happy New Year.
Yes. Well, it looks a lot last year. So.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jackie. Next item up is the Manager of Operations and Community Services, Lee. Will.
Sorry,
Whoa.
missed Jeff, the fire chief's report.
Oh, there you go. I did get. See, I've got the information from. Can't follow it. Good morning, Jeff. Was that somewhat of a surprise that they're shutting Gravenhurst down?
Yeah. Good morning, Your Worship and Council. I wasn't totally surprised, but it did catch me a little off guard. I knew nothing about it until there was two conference calls yesterday with the Fire Marshal's office, and I joined the one at 6:30 p.m. And that's the first time I actually heard it. So yeah, it was a bit surprising. It's a bit disappointing. Lots of firefighters over the last several decades have attended there for courses, and networking is always a bonus there. And the other thing that affects smaller municipalities and departments like West Ogden is the cost. So I'm not sure if council's aware, but typically any course up to 2 weeks at the fire college was $65, and that would include accommodations, all your meals, and the course fee. So that that's outside of firefighter wages, but just for the course itself. So that you can't get any better deal than that. So now to look at a comparative course, and if you read the news release, they talked about regional training centers in it, which is a good step because it's more local options for us. Grimsby is currently one that would probably be the most commonly used. So Grimsby is an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on traffic. But they're usually $350, $400, or $500 plus likely 5 nights accommodations, right? So you're looking at $800 to maybe $1,000 versus $65. So you can see kind of the impact that may have going forward. The fire marshal did kind of make a commitment to look at that and maybe standardize or subsidize some of those costs, but of course that's going to take quite a bit of time to figure out. So yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear it last night, to be honest.
Another one of these things of we're saving you money, pay more.
Yeah, well, and you may be aware, but the fire college. So I guess to kind of put a side note on it, the Ontario Fire College will still exist and oversee the training in the province through regional training centers and online training, but there won't be a bricks and mortar training or fire college in Gravenhurst anymore. But I think there's about 100 acres there on Lake Muskoka. So I'm sure it's very valuable land for the province to do something with, but I don't know if that was a motivation or not, but we'll see.
Now, does that information, is that going to necessitate a change in your budget?
I would say in 2021, I don't believe so. We did account for some extra, I know when we get into budget meetings next week, whenever that is, we did account for some extra budget for 2021. But going forward, it is something that we're going to have to, I think council is going to have to keep in mind and consider. And the part of the challenge with the fire college was some firefighters with, depending on their full-time occupations or schedules, could take advantage of it, but others weren't able to, right? So, and we do have some other options of training centers with weekend and evening courses. So it's not like everyone was able to take advantage of the fire college, but there was definitely a good percentage over the years that was. So I think going forward, it's going to be something we'll have to keep in mind for budget purposes.
Good. Sorry to throw you off track there with that bit. I feel the council needs to know that there were major changes happening.
Mhm.
With that, we'll turn any more in your report other than the stats that you have shared with us.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing that up because I was gonna mention that that kind of late breaking news, I guess, from last night. No, I think you'll see my report in front of you, and just to kind of recap the notes in there. We have brought on 4 new firefighters, and we did have some agility testing planned for this Saturday, but we're gonna postpone that obviously with the provincial lockdown, and I think it's best practice to do that. So that is going to drag that part out a little bit. And in regards to there's 5 firefighters that have begun the NFPA 1001 course. So again, it's a bit of a challenge, but they've begun the online training and done a couple of chapters already. And we are going to do some small in-house training with them just to kind of, so they're still enrolled in the course. They're just not attending physically attending the practical training portion. So we're gonna work with them in-house to kind of make sure they get keep caught up on that. So it's a unique situation, but we're gonna make the best of it. So.
Okay, questions for Jeff on his report, or yes, Angela? You're on mute, Angela.
Councillor Cameron, you're on mute.
Sorry. You said that they're not going to the Oxford County training session that's noted on your report now due to the training changes. That's been postponed due to the recent announcement.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there, but I think I got your question. So 2 points on that. I was a bit surprised, but the Oxford County group, which is a mix of both Elgin and Oxford firefighters, they actually continued on. They decided to start. So they started back on January the 6th, so I guess last week. And technically, fire department training is allowed to continue. But we thought, and I talked to Magda a little bit about it, we thought it was best practice to not send them, mainly because we were the West Elgin and the South students as well are traveling the longest distance, and it's just kind of that community spread risk that we wanted to eliminate, I guess, any possibility of that. So that was kind of our own best practice decision, but they are still enrolled, and like I said, doing the online training portion, and we will do some in-house stuff just with PPE and some other things to keep them, I guess, on track with the rest of the group. Hopefully within, I'm not sure how many weeks, but hopefully they can rejoin the rest of the group when the conditions improve a little bit.
And one last question. Can you tell me the complement breakdown between the 2 halls now that we've hired the new recruits? So is it fairly even between the 2 halls now with the new recruits, or how is that broken down?
It's fairly even. There is, I thought I don't have an attendance sheet, just sorry, in front of me, but there is, so we took on 4 new recruits, 1 in West Lauren and 3 in Rodney, and 1 of each so 1 in West Lauren and 1 in Rodney were brand new to firefighting. So they're enrolled in the 1001 course. You'll see that there are 2 new recruits are enrolled in that course. So they're kind of starting from scratch. And then we took on 2 recruits in Rodney that had previous firefighting experience. So kind of among the senior officers, we determined that they aren't required to take the full recruit training course. So I believe there is a couple more in Rodney than there is in West Lauren currently, but we've put a waiting list together for both stations. So we have, hopefully when the COVID situation levels out and our new bunker gear order comes in the next month or 2, we can bring a few more firefighters on and without having to go through the interview process again. So it's fairly even, but there is a couple more at Station 1 right now.
Thank you.
Bonnie?
I just have a question, Jeff, with regard to burn permits. I'm not real familiar with the process, but I'm assuming that people are required to have a burn permit if the burn is anywhere in a residential area, but if it's in a farm area, maybe not unless it's larger. What is the process there? And do you monitor any of those larger burns at all?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So firstly, that's something that in the next month or 2, and there's a note in the budget about it, we hope to change the burn permit process. Now it is basically all done through the office, and Magda or Janet can probably add a few more details, but the restrictions are based on the zoning. So it's a little black and white on that, which is not a bad thing, but then anything out of the ordinary or anything that might exceed what's in the bylaw gets forwarded to myself for approval if it doesn't automatically get approved. And between myself and Deputy Chief Beer, sometimes we'll pay a site visit, or often, like last week I called somebody applied for a permit in an area that was zoned residential, but they just called to see if I could have a second look at it, and we did. And I talked to Deputy Chief Beer, and it definitely was residential. It was down by the lake, so we denied that permit. But going forward, and I know Heather, I believe Heather often is sometimes consulted on the zoning of particular properties. So what I'm recommending going forward when we get the new burn permit process in place is that we actually set up restricted zones. So then it's more automated, that the zones they can see the zones right on the website. And that takes a bit of the discretionary call on some of the other properties out. And it really automates the process and I think will take a workload off the office itself. So is that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm primarily interested in the agricultural zones. I know that there's a lot of fence lines and things that are being pushed up together and burned right now. And I've had some questions about that. So they don't need to get a burn permit if it's in an agricultural zone?
Yes, no, they do. Sorry, to clarify, yes, they always need a burn permit, even agricultural zones. Basically, I guess in simple terms, anything larger than a backyard campfire, it requires a burn permit, even in rural areas. So, in my experience in the last, I guess, 6 months or so, is compliance has been very good from what I understand. So. And the other thing, two main things, I guess, we consider with agricultural permits or burn permits in agricultural areas is pile size and what materials are being burned. So if it's fence lines, right, it's usually just brush and some dead wood maybe. We just keep an eye on that no other kind of materials get into that burn pile. But those are the 2 big things: pile size and what materials are in there.
Okay, and there is, I'm assuming, no fee for the actual permit?
Correct. And I think this might have come up at a previous council meeting. Correct me, or I apologize if I'm incorrect, but I know it did come up in the last couple of months, at least among staff, that question. And because there is a possible revenue revenue there. But my personal kind of thought or recommendation was that in order to keep compliance levels high, that at least for the time being, that we keep it to a free permit.
And how many would you issue in a year?
That is a good question, and you know what, I don't have a quick answer for you on that. There's some
Okay.
weeks there's.
Sorry, last year I just happened to go through on the website. So from the time we operated the website at the end of March through to the end of December, we issued 138.
Oh, so there is pretty good compliance from the sounds of things then.
Sorry, I just happened to check that, Jeff. Well,
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Okay.
And yeah, no, overall, in my experience anyways, I found the compliance to be quite good, so.
and
And there isn't really any monitoring at this point then from the fire department.
Just complaint based is it, and there's been a few of those, but nothing out of the ordinary, really.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? I think one of the things that we need to do right now with the COVID restrictions and the fact that the office is closed, should we be putting on our website the fact that you can obtain a burn permit by doing it online?
as soon as you click on anything with burn permits or search burn permits or anything, it automatically takes you to apply online. If you search for it anywhere, I can put a new ad, like a resend, like put on Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
If you want. Just
That
so
might be more confusing than anything.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. Just so you know, like too, on our website, there is a whole brochure as soon as you go to anything about burn permits, Bonnie, where it talks about the fact that where they have to be, and as long as fires are in a contained unit and are less than 25 or 26 inches high or wide, then that does not need a permit. But if it's
Right.
if it's not in a container, it requires a permit.
Okay, thanks.
And I just on that note, there was two or three or four burn permits that came through this morning from the office that Emily processed. So some residents are obviously still aware they can get a burn permit with the office being closed. So.
To be honest with you, since we went to it online, I think we maybe had 4 walk-ins, period. Like the entire time the office was open. Everybody else is doing it online. They seem to
Yep.
like.
Good. Angela, question?
Chief MacArthur, are you having a nuisance issue with burns in residential areas in the villages? Like, because Bonnie's questioning about burn permits, is that become a problem in recent months?
Yeah,
I know
there's one.
before it was a problem. I've had some residents contact me. I've always directed them back to either the bylaw officer or yourself.
Yeah, and there is one, and actually, I just sent an email to Bill yesterday in bylaw about there's one particular address now in the village of West Lauren that has become a nuisance, and some of us are probably familiar with which address, but so that is something, and been back and forth a couple times this fall to Bill about that. So that's just something we're going to look at. Generally speaking, the nuisance problems are pretty minimal, and it sometimes is a neighbor issue, but in this case, there's definitely a repeat nuisance issue that we're looking at pretty carefully, how to handle it correctly.
Okay. Everybody happy so far? Any more questions? Then we have a recommendation that West Ogden Council hereby receives the report from Jeff MacArthur, Fire Chief, RE December monthly fire report for information purposes. Do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Rowe, seconded by Tellier. Ask the question.
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tellier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
That is carried.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, now managers of operation and community services. Lee? You're on mute, Lee. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I think we've started here with the 2020 monthly report. It's pretty straightforward, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Anybody got any questions? Bonnie?
Just one comment, Lee. I often drive by the arena and see the blank light sign lit up. And I wondered if we had given any thought to using that as a communications tool, especially over this time when everything's closed, like even putting a sign that says all facility closed, and then maybe putting our website or something like that, since we're paying for the light to be lit anyway.
I don't know that there's been thought given, but it's not it's a good idea, Bonnie. If there was something, do you have any ideas, or does council have any ideas what they feel like they would like to have on that sign?
Angela?
Something positive would be preferred or encouraging. I know people's mental health aren't really doing the best right now.
I think people are pretty well sick of hearing stay home, stay safe, so I would not recommend that.
I wouldn't recommend Rodney's sign that says pizza is life either. So I would say, not by us, we didn't put that up. If I might give my opinion that, yeah, something positive, look at our website.
We'll get
I'm
through
just
this.
thinking Foodlands had some positive stuff on their little kiosk there too. We're going to get through this or whatever. So it's the West Elgin Community House. There's something, just as Bonnie said and Angela said, something positive and uplifting. No one wants to hear libations over and over again going on about wash your hands. We all know that. Like something positive.
You can find really inspirational quotes, and you guys are good at looking up stuff. Just something cold and short and spunky. And then if you want to put the
Maybe we could do the same
more
thing in Rodney. It's sorry, Angela. Maybe we do the same thing in Rodney. It's empty as well in the rec center there.
Okay, well, we'll take that into consideration and we'll start working on that and see if we can come up with something in the next couple of days to utilize that signage.
Thanks.
You know, I think if we could just reinforce the message, if you want current updates on COVID related or municipal related issues, if we can do whatever we can to direct people to our website. Teresa?
Through the chair, maybe even, I don't know how you do this, shorten a sign, but that we're hiring for summertime employment. Summer opportunities, and then our website or something.
Wouldn't this be so convenient if we had one of those electronic signs?
I think we're going to be talking about that, aren't we, Magda?
Oh, good.
I have a question. This is not in your report, but where do we currently stand? Richard, you and I had a meeting with the Board of Management of Yacht Club, and we were going to see if permits were available to rebuild those west piers down at Port Glasgow, the permits from the Lower Thames. And the reason that I'm asking this question is that County Council authorized the tender for the reconstruction of Rodney Main Street, and there is going to be a tremendous amount of concrete that's going to come out of that project that we could use down at the lake if we have the necessary permits in place to be able to do it. So I'm hoping that those discussions with Lower Thames has been taking place, and that we'll have permits as the contract, I believe, is going to start 1st of April, and that will be one of the first things that probably will be needed to be done is the removal of sidewalks and curbs and gutters from downtown Rodney. So can you brief council as to where we are with Lower Thames?
Correct. So I have been in discussions with Jason at Lower Thames on this. So permit turnaround time right now is approximately 6 weeks. So we have lots of time to get that finalized before that concrete starts to be removed from the Rodney construction project.
I know that one of the vice president of the yacht club has been contacted by the contractor to see if we'd be in a position to utilize that concrete out of Rodney down at Port Glasgow. Again, getting back to the yacht club, any more discussion on that overflow pipe that we had discussed at one of our meetings?
Yeah, they're looking at that right now. That has to go through Lower Thames. They have to approve that before I had to supply them with drawings of what we were wanting to do down there. So they have to look at that first and approve that before that can happen.
So I guess on top of that, Richard, as our Lower Thames representative, you can keep track of what's happening regarding those permits.
Sure, I can. Yes.
Any other questions for Lee on that report? Angela?
Regarding Parks and Recreation, now that we have been extended into lockdown into February, are we in discussion with the Arena Board of Management on next steps with the ice?
Yeah, we have an Arena board meeting scheduled for the last week of January. So that's going to be, at that time, we'll speak with the board and get their thoughts on whether or not we extend and look to the 10th. Initially they had promised to keep the ice in for at least one 28-day period, which started on the 24th or 26th of December. So the ice was going to stay until the end of January. So at that time, and when we meet with the board, we'll discuss that and see if there's any appetite to extend that, or if we cut our losses for this season and just remove the ice at the end of January.
Go ahead.
Substantial revenue losses, leaving the generators idling for 2 months with no revenue, I'm assuming.
Well, if we extended it, we had said that we were going to extend it for at least 1 month. Right now, with the building closed up, with nobody being in there, the compressors are running, they're probably only cycling once or twice a day versus, probably at least half a dozen times a day. So, and we have the temperature turned down right now, turned up, so that, the ice is still there. But if it reopened, we would cool things off again to make better ice. So yes, there is a cost associated with continuing to keep the ice in, but it's not the same cost as if we had actually had people in the facility right now. It's a lower cost. So that was, once we take the ice out, it would not go back in this spring. So that was the idea in December, was that we would leave it for that 28-day period, see if we could come out of that at the end of January and get back open again. The clubs associated said that they would continue to use it after that 28-day period. So that was the decision that was made at that time. But like I said, now with this new information, when we have that board meeting, we'll make that decision at that time.
I think the board's position on it, the last meeting that we had, was to put the building into an energy saving mode. And I think that's been accomplished. And I think that there probably will be some financial information to show the board what difference that energy saving mode has made over the last month. So we have some financials to understand how much it will cost to go forward. Richard.
Yeah, I was just going back to down the marina there, and when I look at that pipe that has to be dug in, when it is done, maybe the car park can be topped off. At the moment, it's just like a slot down there. So I don't know what you're going to finish. Once you've done your digging, we need to grade that off with some proper stone so it can be used properly. And, you know, so it's a car park once and for all, instead of some people are frightened to take their car through it right now. So I think it's quite important that we do get this done so it's utilised properly for next summer.
I expect we'd need to put that into the budget because that's not going to be without cost.
Yeah, Councillor Rowe and Leatham, there is money in the budget to put a gravel top on that parking lot. We constructed it last year and we wanted to give it a chance to settle. Once we got it done and things got busy down there was just really no time for us to wholeheartedly cover that off, but we wanted to let that settle and pack in before we put that final layer of A gravel on top. That currently is just B gravel there right now. That's why it gets greasy when it gets wet.
Is the intention, Lee, of putting a coat of gravel on the driveway around the basin? I was down there on the weekend, and because of this open winter and because of the COVID and because people are just looking for someplace to go, I was absolutely amazed at the amount of traffic of people that are just driving down there to look at the lake, turn around and drive back up. And the reality is that road around the basin, because of all the traffic, you know, it's just like it's just potholes, and whether the guys could send the drag down there once in a while to give that a little tidying up, certainly I think would make it much more attractive to the people that are just simply needing somewhere to go, and that's a very safe activity to be able to do that. But it does need some attention.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. The drag was out last night. Things have started mild up again. So the drag was out last night and it's out today. So we'll have, I'll have Jamie take a look at that down there and see if we can't fix that up.
Now, Dougie Johnson's probably going to be moving his lake gravel over there in the near future, is he?
That I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's quite a pile of lake gravel down there, and it would be, I think it would be a benefit to everyone if we could be in a position to have the lake gravel moved out, and Doug could bring in A gravel for the parking lot so he has a backhaul. I don't know if you had those discussions with Doug or not.
No, not yet. I know that I did speak with him. They'll typically want to remove that before the spring load restriction comes into effect. So. Okay,
Angela.
Mr. Mayor, Lee, is there any benefit to change the top down there and put a different finish on it, because it is getting so much use? Like, you're right. I mean, we drove down because just out of pure boredom, like, and everybody's doing the same thing. Should we consider in the future putting something in reserve to change the top with a different top on it, or just leave it with A gravel?
Yeah, well,
I'm not an expert in finishes, so.
I would say that the A gravel for what you're going to have down there, I would say that the A gravel is going to do what we want it to do. Like I said, that whole parking area where we removed the hill, that's all just B gravel there right now. There is no A gravel on that. So that's, I think you'll notice quite a difference this year once we put the A gravel. That would be the same gravel that we would apply to the roads. Short of that, I mean, outside of A gravel, then you're starting to look at something like surface treatment or asphalt, and that gets quite expensive. And I don't know how it would necessarily hold up to that kind of traffic down there. Asphalt certainly would, but it would be very, very, very expensive.
Okay, thanks.
Just to add to that, I think whenever I'm there, most of the people are doing a drive-through. You know, they're driving up to the east side of the basin, they're having a look at the lake, sitting there, maybe having their lunch, and then they're pulling out again. And the same over on the west side, they're driving onto, you know, where the gravel is right now, and they're doing a loop around, and they might get out and walk at the shore, and then they're back again. So unless it's a busy weekend in the marina, in which case the parking lot is used, it's a drive-through view, and those are the areas I find that are quite muddy.
Well, I think, we're all aware of the situation, and as Lee said, that he's going to have Jamie have a look at it and see if there's some short-term improvements that we can make on it. It was really, I really couldn't believe the number of people that just drive even up on the end of Furnival Road, drive up to the park and turn around, and it's a strange time, and we can only do what we can do to try to make it better for people. Any other questions on Lee's monthly report? Seeing none, we'll go down to report on facility rental insurance. Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as council is aware, in last year, 2020, as part of the program of getting things in order with our facility rentals, including contracts and insurance, we have asked now for any facility rental, we require a certificate of insurance from the renter, listing the municipality as additionally insured. That protects us. It protects them as well. Most renters, most people that rented facilities had no issues obtaining that certificate of insurance from their insurance company. It's usually either no cost or a very small administrative cost for the insurance broker to create that certificate of insurance and email it out. But there are situations where the possibility may arise that a renter may not, if they don't have, say, a homeowner's policy that already has liability insurance on it, then they would have to either, they wouldn't be able to rent, or they would have to go and try and find somebody that would give them that policy or sell them that policy, which could be expensive. So the municipality's current insurance provider, which is Frank Cowan, has a program that we are entitled to through our policy that allows us to sell insurance to a renter on Cowan's behalf. So if you look at there's a schedule there that is for $2 million liability insurance, and it's for rates. So this is how rates would be calculated on the first page. So say somebody wanted to rent the recreation center for a function, and there was going to be 50 people there at that event. The hourly rate would be $3, or if it was a 1 or 2 day event, it would be $25, and so on. So we would have this chart here at the office. On the rental contract, we would update our rental contract to say, okay, either the renter is going to provide a certificate of insurance from their own insurance company, or they are opting to take the insurance that we can provide through Frank Cowan. Emily would then look at the event that they're going to host, or why they're renting the facility. She would go to this chart and she would figure out what the rental rate would be, and what that insurance rate would be, and then that would be just added to the cost of the rental. Cowan's would provide us with a schedule, or with a reporting sheet where she would fill that information. So how she came up with that premium and the fact that it was collected. And then at the end of the year, so the way it works is if we felt that we were going to sell $2,000 worth of insurance premiums through the course of 2021, we would write a check to Cowan's right now for $2,000. They would hold that as a deposit for this year. At the end of this year, if we only saw $500 worth of insurance, we would be we would be refunded $1,500. Or if we sell more than the $2,000, we would just remit that extra premium to them. So it doesn't cost the municipality anything to offer this. It's just our administrative time to to figure this out and to keep track of it. But there is administrative time with trying to explain to some people how to go about obtaining a certificate of insurance too, which has been a struggle for a few renters. So it's for non-sporting events and for sporting events that are low risk. So as you can see there's activities that we cannot sell premium on, such as contact sports like hockey. So it's pretty straightforward. We would just use this chart if the person was wishing to just purchase the insurance. This gives us the peace of mind knowing that anybody, even somebody that doesn't have their own policy, can still rent a municipal facility and provide that insurance protection. So, and it will help in some cases where some people don't necessarily want to go to the work of contacting their own insurance company and having that certificate of insurance sent out. They could just add the insurance to the contract, and we would just offer it through Cowan's. And there's even, if you read on through there's even in that schedule, there's even premiums for groups that rent, say, the seniors that go in and play cards once a week there. If it's a meeting that happens every week over the course of the year, then 50 people renting a facility weekly to play bridge, the annual charge would be $125, and that would be insurance to cover them for the whole year. So the only thing with this obviously is that it is, if something happens, it is our municipal policy that insurance is being covered on.
Okay, any questions for Lee regarding that way forward? Certainly, I think is the easiest way to go, and I think all municipalities require this insurance for the using of their facilities. That's just the way it is in the insurance world anymore. That people do have to have that extra protection. Bonnie, you had a question.
Yeah, I just I was looking at the schedule and trying to figure out how the fees are figured out. So the example, say for example, in the 50 people renting the facility to play bridge with no alcohol, if they're going to play all day, it's $25. And if it's every week, how is it that it's times 5? That's how they make their calculation. Basically, you're getting a discount by taking a year's worth of premium. So I don't know how they come up with that 5. That's in their insurance. They're figuring that the $125, it's like anything else. The more you purchase, the cheaper it gets, right? So if you're purchasing insurance for a whole year worth of weekly meetings, they're telling us that the premium for that would be $125. Okay, and so we've got access to that schedule. So I'm just thinking, like, for example, the card players in the Rodney Recreation Center that are going to play cards for a couple of hours a week for the year. So it wouldn't be $6 times 52. It would be something much less than that. Yeah, it would be, so for 1 to 50 people, which that would cover the card players, and they're meeting weekly to play cards, the annual charge would be the 1 day rate, which is $25 times 5. So their premium for the whole year would be $125. Yeah, or if they're playing for a couple of hours though, that's. Yeah, but
well, it would still, if they're playing for a couple hours, you know, if they wanted to do it at the hourly rate, so 1 to 50 people at $3 an hour, so that would be $6 for them each day that they go to play. You know, times 52 weeks.
Okay, so there is no shortened version for that kind of option. It's cheaper
No.
for them to go for a day.
Well, it would be, yeah, it would be cheaper for them to just pay the $125 premium for the.
Okay,
And that
and
would-
the other thing that I was thinking of, a lot of these people may ask to have their fees waived this year, but my gut feeling tells me that they should pay their own insurance rather than having that granted from the municipality, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so we, obviously that is in place that, you know, people are asking for the fees, the rental fees to be waived. But my recommendation, obviously, even with the fees being waived, we would still require a signed contract and we would still require insurance. And I think you're right, Councillor. I think that you know, they have the option of contacting their own insurance company. And like I say, a lot of insurance companies, it's at no charge that they can contact them and have that certificate of insurance issued. But if they don't want to do that, or if they can't do that, this program provides them a second option.
Just one question, Lee, that some of the programs do not carry on through a whole year. Is there any thought been given to the fact that if your program is only 3 months, or if it's 6 months, or if it's something that you need a year-round policy on? Has it been broken down into smaller increments at all?
No, it is not. This is the program from Cowan's. This is what they offer. You know, if it's something that's only a 3 month, you know, that 3 months and then a year, then obviously it would just be calculated at the hourly or daily rate versus the yearly rate. They don't break it down into quarters or semi-annual.
Any other questions for Lee on this matter? Again, it's another one of those things that will take a little while to get the public up to speed on, but I think it's something that is necessary for the protection of the corporation. Seeing no more questions, how do you want to handle this, Madam Clerk?
So we have a resolution that you receive his report, and the council hereby approves implementing a facility rental insurance program as provided by West Elgin's current insurance provider, Frank Cowan. And we can call for that.
Okay, I need a word second to that. Moved by Leatham, seconded by Tellier. Can you call the question?
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tellier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
That is carried.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Any other questions for Lee under the community?
Did we approve his first report?
Yeah, it was a joint resolution, yeah.
We could just take that as I just noted as we received it because there wasn't anything big in it.
Okay.
Okay, seeing nothing else, certainly thank the guys that come out over the Christmas holidays to look after the snow. That's again something that was a little unique this year. Next item up is planning. Heather, Thames Valley District School Board's annual community planning and facility collaboration.
Sir Bonnie,
Oh,
Duncan waving
I
at
just
you.
wondered if we could have a break soon.
You want to have one right now? We can do that before we get into Heather. Let's take 5 minutes and we'll be
Thank you.
back. Okay. La 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 la. What's this Capital One thing they want? You got money there or something?
Is that stupid?
That's just a trick.
Huh?
I think that's just a trick because you don't even have a Capital One card.
No, but is that, oh no, that was an MBNA. The one that I had on. I know. That's not. It's nice out cold. It's hot. I don't need any boiling water in the pond today.
Well, that was nice that Kyle was able to.
Oh.
Okay, looks like we have everybody back, except for Jana.
I actually never left. I just put myself on black, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. With that, we'll turn it over to Heather for the Thames Valley District School Board update. You're muted, Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. Does council have any questions on the report?
Councillor Leatham.
Hello, Heather. Does it look like Alderbrook Public School is going to go on with their extension, but they're still just waiting for the federal money to come in?
That is correct. The school board indicated that it is still their plan to continue to move forward with that. They're unfortunately experiencing funding shortfalls from the province.
Okay, thanks.
Abani.
Yeah, I had a similar question from as Richards. Did they give any indication what the funding shortfalls were?
No.
And overall, I was really surprised that this meeting is being held without a counselor there as well. This is an important issue in our community, and I didn't realize that it was an annual meeting, but obviously you've attended the yearly in the past. Who decides the attendance for these?
If I may just speak to that, this meeting was scheduled in December at the exact same time that we had West Elgin Council. So unfortunately, a counselor wasn't able to attend. And I had already been asked to attend on behalf of the Township of Suffolk. So when I spoke with Magda about it, I said to Magda I could also attend on behalf of West Elgin and provide a report back to council.
Okay. Yeah, is this an annual meeting?
For the most part, yes, from what I'm seeing, it is an annual meeting. They have been changing it in terms of the time of year, from what I'm seeing. It was a little delayed this year based upon everything the school board's been experiencing with the pandemic.
And just so you know, Bonnie, in the last year, Teresa and Richard did attend on.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
As well as myself. I attended the previous year as well.
This meeting came up last minute. We didn't.
Yes.
I think we got 24 hours or 48 hours notice, maybe?
No, we received about a week.
Maybe about a week, but it was the same time as council, yeah.
Yes.
That being said, you know, I just stress that, you know, it would have been better if some of us or one of us had been able to participate in that. What sorts of potential collaboration opportunities are they talking about with West Elgin? And when you say that West Elgin is status quo, I'm assuming that that was with regard to enrollment, that actually means that they are 60% below enrollment for 2 years in a row until they fall into that collaborative opportunities category.
So in terms of status quo, yes, they're anticipating that enrollment will stay the same at West Elgin Community Center, hence the term status quo. In terms of collaboration opportunities, they did not provide any further information on what that would look like for West Elgin Secondary School.
So what kind of things would it look like in other schools?
They didn't provide any information whatsoever about it. And I've gone onto the board's website to try to find more information, and I'm not seeing anything at this time.
And so with enrollment being status quo, it is 60% below enrollment, is it?
That's correct. That's what the board is saying.
Okay.
Any other questions for Heather? Angela?
Heather, did they allude that they were sending Alderborough out to maybe have the design adjusted, as when the initial tenders came in, it was a grandioso scheme and well above their initial budget? Was that discussed at all?
Oh,
I
looks
think
like
she's frozen.
Oh, yeah.
Did you catch that, Heather? You want me to repeat it?
If you could repeat it, please.
Sure. Did they allude with Aldeboro if they were potentially adjusting the design? Because I'd initially heard when the first tender quotes came in, it was significantly higher than they had budgeted for. I just wondered if they had mentioned whether they were adjusting the initial design concepts to bring the cost down.
No, they did not mention that whatsoever. And there is currently still an open site plan agreement for that with municipality. It hasn't been completed, and they haven't informed me of any changes.
Okay.
So to just clarify, if I could through the chair, what is the status of that application for a build there? Because you hear things in the community, we don't really get a clear report on what the status is. Could you enlighten us as to what the process is in that application?
Well, in terms of site plan, I've been advised by the board that it's on hold at this time. They've requested for me not to proceed with that site plan agreement.
There was a previous building permit issued, but it was and done and issued for previous drawings. They had it canceled. So basically they're gonna have to start that process over again, but otherwise, yeah. And I just wanted to clarify, Bonnie, neither Magda or I actually received the Thames Valley invite to even send to council. It wasn't until Heather notified us about the meeting that senior staff even knew about it. To just that, so that I don't know if we can clarify something like that with the school board, but we were not, neither Magda or I were informed to notify you guys.
I wonder if there's any value in us asking for a meeting with the board. We seem to have questions that aren't answered with regard to the proposed project. We don't have a clear understanding of what a collaborative, whatever the terminology is they used, collaborative opportunities they are considering with regard to our school. Is this something that the rest of council would find of value to actually sit down with our school board reps maybe and get a clearer picture of what is the current status with our schools?
I think, Bonnie, what they're going to say, that it's a hold up from the provincial government in their funding model, and I believe Tressa and I went and had a deputation with the Minister of Education regarding this issue. So I think the first place for us to our first stop should be with council's permission. I will contact Jeff Urick and ask him just what is the status regarding the initial provincial funding announcement and where does it stand now, even since we've had the meeting with the Minister of Education. We have heard no further, have received no further information where this project stands in the big scheme of things. Should we start there, and then we'll probably get an answer that doesn't answer any questions from the government, but at least we've put them on notice that we haven't gone away. Tress, I think you were going to make a comment on something, and then we'll get to the other hands.
Through the chair, the comment I was going to make was very similar to what you're saying, that we met with the education minister in August of 2019. He listened, not really much action on it. That was my opinion. Maybe Duncan felt differently. We also talked about the middle school that's empty and how that could be great in our community, that the school board will not put it up for sale. It's currently not up for sale. So as per Heather's report as well. So, and then when Richard and I went last year, we talked about all the same talking points. I know that I have a few families in just my ward that have moved Dutton, Iona way, and all three of them have said that it was mainly due to daycare. There's no daycare in the area. and they really needed daycare, but they're both professionals, all of them. So yeah, so we've been kind of going down that road since we started our term, and not a lot has come out of it. So I think that would be great, Duncan, if you could go and kind of let them know we're still here and be that little fly in the room.
just taking that concept one step farther, why don't we kind of collectively put some of the provincial issues that we feel are outstanding in West Elgin here, and we invite Minister York to join us on a Zoom meeting, and we can put forward those concerns that we have collectively to the minister. Angela?
I'd like to see that, because especially when it comes to this education matter, I'm seeing funding go to large urban areas. They seem to have forgotten us, and people are moving out of Toronto and the large centers, and we need the support out here, and we're not getting the funding that we need. And I think we need to be loud and squeaky and make lots of noise and be heard. So yeah, I would like to have a one-on-one with Minister Yurek, and you know, let's make lots of noise and see what we can get.
Well, I think that if we're going to go down that road, that we're going to need defined topics that we wish to discuss with Jeff, and I think that we'll have to kind of stay on that script, because certainly as a minister, they don't like to be caught flat-footed on topics that they're not prepared for. So you know, if we can come up with 2 or 3 provincial concerns that we have in West Elgin, certainly I think Jeff would be more than willing to join us on a Zoom meeting. Yes.
So if everyone wants to submit to me what they consider their issues, we can put that together and to send to Delaney, and then you can obviously, I'll put it together. We'll discuss it at the next council meeting, or even at the committee of the whole, if we can get it fast enough. Pinpoint the issues, and then we'll send the request to Minister York's office. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with maybe requesting a meeting with the school board reps specific to this school board, because they're the ones who decide what to do with the specific money and specific individual projects, more so than even the province. That's my take. Since the school seems to be an issue. So we could do both if you wish.
Okay. Well, why don't we do it this way? Why don't certainly the school issue is one of the items that are on topic. Is there anything else that you'd like to speak with Mr. York about? Does anybody have that, or do you want a little time to think about it? And as Janice suggested, put those ideas send them into Jana, and then we'll shortlist them and let the minister know what we would like to discuss with him. How about we leave that? If you can get them in as quick as possible to Jana, then we can maybe discuss them at our committee of the whole meeting in the next week or so. Does that make sense? Angela?
Through the chair, if you're to push Alderborough, perhaps maybe we should involve Mr. Fife, the principal at the school. He may have a little more insight of school board reps and just a little inside information. He might be able to provide us with a little leg up. We can include him in some information.
Well, you know, I think that there's going to be a number of meetings that are going to have just entertaining the minister on a one-on-one basis. I think to start with would probably work better for him. I don't know if that's just my experience with dealing with ministers. They like to be in a comfort zone when they're know what they're talking about and being able to have that information. So we don't know what this gentleman maybe or maybe not going to ask, but I think that we can work that through as we move forward. I will give Delaney a heads up that this is coming, and see what her thoughts are on it, and then when we sit down to short list the things that we want to talk to Jeff about. I could maybe give a little more indication from his office prepared to talk about and what he's not. So let's move forward with that idea that get your ideas that you wish to talk to the government about, get them into Jana, and then we'll discuss them at our committee of the whole meeting. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Any other questions for Heather on the? And I think that this was kind of an anomaly last year because of the conflicting dates, but certainly I think that we need to inform the school board to please let our administration staff know when these meetings are going to be held.
I was just going to say that add our CAO to that invitation list so that we can plan accordingly.
Okay, any more for Heather? I think as I get my other iPad warmed up here that our next item is approval for waiver of fees.
Do we just want to, do you want to do the resolution to receive her report, or we can just note it that?
That would be fine. Mover and seconder to accept the receive and file Heather's report. Moved by Tully, seconded by Leatham. Call the question, please.
Mayor McPhail?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham?
Yes.
Councillor Tellier?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
That is carried.
Next item, approval of waiver of fees requests.
Just to refresh everybody's memory, council did agree to waive the fees for recognized groups in 2021. However, they wanted the ability to choose, make sure that all the groups are recognized. So basically, community groups fill out this form. They will come to you pretty every council or as we get them. They are checked to make, before they come to you, they are checked to make sure we have the availability for the rooms, such things like that. Then the forms come to you. It's just a straight up approve or say yes or no, and away we go, kind of thing. So that's where we're at with these.
So does anybody have any issue with these requests? Bonnie?
I think that the Tiny Tots request falls into a bit of a different category from my perspective. You know, yes, they probably could use the help, and I understand them asking because they had seen that that was an option, but essentially they do receive some funding, whereas other groups do not. So I would say that my gut feeling is that they don't really fit into what we had in mind in terms of waiving fees so that groups can continue to be active through this time.
I wonder when Tiny Tots were at the Alto Public School, were they waived from the school board for them to be there? Anybody know?
They paid rent, I believe. Lee, do you remember when they came to council and we set the agreement with them to pay the $1,000, right? And then they said they paid rent out there.
Yeah, I don't remember them. I don't know. I can't say what the arrangement is with All Girls School.
No, I don't know.
What's your pleasure here?
I think that, as I recall through the chair, that Tiny Tots proposed this rental arrangement to us as something that was quite doable from their finances. I think that we should accept it as the previous arrangement, and if they run into difficulties and want to approach us again or something, I guess that would be an option. But I would like to continue with the arrangement that they had proposed.
Okay. Okay, as we go through the list here, 9.1, everybody comfortable with that? Do you need a resolution for each one of these? Yeah.
As I say, we can do a blanket resolution to approve 9.1 and 9.2. And then you can direct staff to respond back to Tiny Tots stating that this doesn't fit the criteria or some sort of wording like that.
Yeah, I think a letter should be sent to them, refreshing their memory of the original discussion that we had with them. Does that satisfy everybody?
I believe
1 and 2.
has some questions, has something she'd like to say.
Who is this?
Councillor Cameron?
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Do we charge Weight Watchers?
No, the tops fell under the same program as the service clubs at the complex in West Lorne.
But is Tops the same as Weight Watchers? Because we have Weight Watchers that was using one of our, or they're not, Bonnie?
No, they're not.
No.
They were using the
Gym.
workout gym in West Lorne there prior to the pandemic, but there's no rental going on right now.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, thank you. I just didn't.
Oh, sorry. All of these groups are aware that our facilities are closed. So this is for submitted prior to the current closure. They won't be able to get in right away.
Yeah, it's just for future
No,
use this year.
Yeah.
I've got Tops mixed up with Weight Watchers. Thank you.
Okay,
This is taking off pounds sensibly.
They've
That's
been
their
around for
acronym.
a long time.
okay, just summing up here, everybody comfortable with the fact that we accept 1 and 2 and direct staff to prepare a letter for Tiny Tots.
Okay, so I'd like a resolution just for that, so we keep track of what it is.
Okay, 1 and 2, mover and seconder for approving that. Moved by Rowe and seconded by Leatham. Call the question.
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron. I moved ahead.
Yes.
Councillor Tellier, I skipped you, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
carried.
Okay, next item, directing staff to prepare a letter for Tiny Tots to allow them in the building under the original agreement with a rental fee.
You don't actually have to move and second that you can just direct us that you want us to send that letter, unless you want the resolution.
No, that's fine. Staff direction, send a letter to Tiny Tots. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yep.
All right. Moving on, committee and board reports. Who wants to start with that? Anybody got anything from any committee or board? Yes, Bonnie?
I don't have a committee report, but I'm curious just to check with Magda whether we are still running our bus over this January time with the current measures.
Yes, we are. It's cheaper for us to run the bus than not to run the bus. We're making more money running the bus. We have received, let me just quickly open my budget file.
It's okay. We don't need the details.
I have it. Yeah, no, we are, so currently for 2021, we are receiving provincial gas tax. It's around $31,000, and another grant that just came in is for Safe Restart Phase 2. If we didn't run the bus, we wouldn't be entitled to that grant. And that we are getting $33,000 in that grant.
Yeah.
So
and we are getting a few requests for calls still for drives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Great.
the bus is available for all the people in need, for grocery, doctor's appointments.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any committees?
Through the chair, I do. So we haven't met, but the Ann Smith had organized for a fundraiser for the fair, Bo Horvat jersey and stick. So the winners were picked this week, and they were fairly successful. When you can't really get out there and sell tickets, they were mildly surprised about the success of it. So that was great. We're trying to figure out for that board how to have an AGM, because not everybody is tech savvy. So we're trying to figure that all out. And then a couple of my stuff's been moved because of the new restrictions. And the Homeless Coalition, they're just trying to get some insurance together. The congregation at Grace Anglican Church on Morden in West Lorne unanimously agreed to have an emergency shelter set up there. So they're, and the diocese agreed, the Anglican diocese agreed. So they're just trying to organize that and to get volunteers together, working with the Elmer housing, emergency housing, because why reinvent the wheel, and get that going. So it's just in the details now, pretty much. And that's about it for my committee reports, I think. Everything's fairly quiet.
Anything else? Okay, I have a number of things from County Council, I guess, to update West Elgin Council on. Start out with some of the good news things that County Council on Tuesday accepted the tenders for the Rodney reconstruction project. Certainly something that's been promised for many, many, many years is finally going to take place. I believe that they're intending on starting sometime in April, are they not, Lee?
Lee, you were muted.
Yes, the project start date is sometime in April, weather pending.
Yeah, okay, so that's one good bit of news. Next item up, the homeless situation in West Elgin. Certainly Bob Purcell and myself, and mainly Bob, has arranged for, through our CAO at the county, that Social Services is going to be attending our next county council meeting, and we're going to be discussing the distribution of money that was sent to them by the province, and hopefully ensuring that all areas of Elgin are represented in those funds Social Services have received from the province. So I'll have more to report at our next meeting as the result of meeting with them. I spoke with the warden yesterday, and he has had a conversation with United Way, and they are aware of the situation in West Elgin, and certainly that's quite encouraging that people are now maybe paying a little attention that we could have a potential homeless problem in West Elgin, or we do have one, and possibly we can find some additional funding to help with that. Any questions on that little bit? Now we kind of get into the more County Budget Committee has recommended a 3.2% increase at county levy. The way the county does that is that they are looking at a 3.2% increase over the next 10 years. I'm not so sure I'm really comfortable with that. That's what has happened in the last 10 years. So I think there's going to be some more budget deliberations that will be necessary before this budget does get passed. One of the things that really concerned me with the county council meeting on Tuesday was the fact that county councilors did not put any money in the budget for broadband. Certainly that was very, very disturbing to me for something that is an essential service. And, you know, I tried to explain them that, yes, maybe the connectivity committee has not come out with any hard recommendations as of yet, but I look at this broadband as a long-term solution that, much like sending your children to school, if you don't start putting money in the sock for them for their education fund and be prepared when they're ready to go to school, you're not doing yourself any favors. So I've been fairly vocal about this oversight since the meeting, and I was told by the warden yesterday that it's not too late to get a placeholder line in the budget for broadband, which I think each and every one of us is hoping that as it is necessary in this day and age that we have reliable broadband in our community, that we have to do everything we can to help our residents obtain that. That being said, with the reluctance of Elgin County to put money into the broadband, is there a necessity that West Elgin open up some at least preliminary discussions with Chatham Kent to see if there are any opportunities that we can realize working with Chatham Kent to work off any initiatives that they have going over in their community, and certainly bring them across the border. Would council be comfortable with Magna and I, opening up initial discussions with Chatham Kent to see what's available coming out of their municipality that we might be able to tap onto? The service that I'm speaking on right now comes out of Chatham Kent. The tower is in Chatham Kent that I receive it on. So I think that even though the borders are hard, they're quite imaginary borders that wireless has the ability to cross without problems. So what are your thoughts on having a discussion with the individual in Chatham Kent? Magda? Or not, Bonnie?
Yeah, this is an issue, as we all know, that is, a big issue for a large portion of our constituents. And I totally support your pressure on Elgin County to begin to have some sort of a reserve to, you can't offer any kind of partnership with a provider unless you have a little something to offer in terms of, hard cash. And, that's certainly something that we might want to consider locally in our budget as well. It doesn't need to be large, but it's just basically a commitment to looking at options for partnerships. And yes, it makes total sense that we look at Chatham Kent. They're just a stone's throw away, and there are potential options that we could partner with them on. So those are my thoughts.
Angela?
I think connectivity, I can see it with online schooling. Both my students, a vast majority of them are using wireless hubs from the school boards because those of us that live in the farm cannot get proper internet, and the teachers are struggling with connectivity issues. So if us as municipal level have to do something, then I'm absolutely receptive to seeing what we can do, because I don't think that the online world is going anywhere. We talked about that when we got on the meeting, that you think that online learning is going to continue. So I think we should take the necessary steps, whether it is to start to build a reserve fund, and if we can talk to the providers in Chatham to see if maybe we have to explore bringing our own towers into West Elgin. I would be receptive to exploring that and the costs and seeing what we can do for the future. Doesn't sound like maybe this connectivity committee is going to do something if they're not putting money in reserves. So I'd like to look at other options.
And I think I have been appointed by the warden to sit on the connectivity committee. We do have a meeting just as soon as we're done with this meeting here. I believe at 2 o'clock we have a connectivity committee meeting, and so certainly we'll have some hard discussions there. There are a number of things that I kind of see need to be changed, the way the whole thing works with the connectivity committee and to the budget committee. I think there's some things that we can improve on, and I know that the warden is very supportive of this, and so we're going to have this meeting this afternoon, and we'll see where it goes from there. But certainly, I think anything, you know, whether whoever we have to talk to try to expedite connectivity in West Elgin is something that I think is very important to our residents, and we have to do anything and everything that we can possibly do, and talk to anybody that'll sit down and talk to us to see if there's some way that we can move this on faster, because it's a serious issue that it was very evident in the conferences that I have gone to, and it was brought up very clearly that if you're going to rely on somebody else to provide you with broadband, then it's not going to happen. If you don't take the initiative and start working on it yourself, it's just simply not going to happen. And you know, when you talk to somebody that has got good internet, they're really not worried. Everything is great with them. But unfortunately, I think the challenge that I would like to make to some of the people that have decided not to put money into connectivity in Elgin County, that just shut your internet off for a week. Just shut it off and see how uncomfortable that is when you can't be in contact. So you know, it's a battle that's out there, and I think that we'll move. I will try to move it forward as best as I can. So certainly, thank you for that support. And Magda and I will be talking about how we move forward with it from here, and we'll certainly keep County Council in the loop as to what and if anything can be done. Enough on broadband. I think another thing that the official plan for the county, that I don't know if Heather is still here or not, and she's probably aware of the fact that the OP update for Elgin County will be starting in the very near future.
Yes, that's correct.
So certainly it kind of coincides with our OP amendments, or our OP, redoing our OP as it needs to be done right now. So that's all kind of going hand in hand. I got just one more item, and I think that it's something that there seems to be a lot of break-ins and thefts that happen to be going on right now, and I'm just wondering whether, you know, certainly is it time that we asked Inspector Butler to come to County Council and inform us, you know, what is the situation out there, how prevalent are the thefts, and what does the OPP recommend that we can try to get the message out to people to certainly lock their vehicles, and what mitigating things that they can do to protect themselves. Bonnie?
Yeah, it's something that's been mentioned to me, and you know, obviously lots of vehicles being broken into and stolen over the last while. And yes, we know that our community is hurting financial wise, but this is not the way to respond to it. I would be interested to hear whether the numbers are higher overall, or are we unique in this area, what they are doing, anything differently to respond to this? How can we advise our citizens as to what they should be doing when we try to keep up on social media with most of the comments about so-and-so's truck got stolen, or I saw a truck on the road that looked suspicious. And, you know, how do you keep on top of those kind of comments? Have you called 911 and reported it? Because unless you do, as far as they're concerned, it hasn't happened. So I would really like to hear a report from our representative from the OPP.
Richard.
As we all know, that we're rather short of police on the ground, and we have been for a number of years. And this time of year is even worse when they're doing ride programs, and they've got all their officers out doing road programs. You know very well there's no police anywhere else, and it's really an open book for people that do bad things, because they know when somebody's they do a road program in Rodney, there's nobody in West Lawn. There's no police in West Lawn. They just haven't got enough to spread about. So the convicts, unfortunately, the people that do these bad things, take advantage of these all the time. And I think that's what you'll find the police will probably finish up telling us.
Well, I think that people would be surprised the number of our officers in Elgin that are seconded to Caledonia on a regular basis, and they're taken off the road in Elgin. So I think that we do, you know, if everybody's, we have consensus to get Sergeant or Inspector Butler in to just have a roundtable discussion, and hopefully we'll be better prepared to answer the public's questions regarding policing. And
yeah, I think it's a grand thing.
I'll send him an invite for an upcoming council.
Okay, that would be great. Unless anybody has any other specific questions for Elgin County, we are vaccinating in our long-term care homes. We've been very fortunate with, I think, very good management by our home staff to limit the exposure of COVID in our homes. They've done an excellent job where you see the carnage that has gone on in some long-term care homes. We've been able to keep it pretty much under control in our Elgin homes. So certainly our hats off to the administration and staff at County Homes for doing that. I think the county is in the lockdown, much the same as West Elgin is. The building is closed, and certainly as many people as can possibly are working from home. So unless there are any other specific questions from the county side of it, I think we're ready to move on to accounts. Everybody has had their opportunity to have any questions answered. Anything that has come up since then that you need clarification on? Certainly the Elgin Incentives Grant for the Dollar Store in Rodney certainly has made a great improvement on the front of that building. So I'm not sure whether that program is going to continue on or not, but it certainly has worked well in that situation. So we do have a recommendation that the mayor and treasurer hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 1 amounting to $2,769,822 in settlement of general road, water, and arena accounts. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Leatham, seconded by Rowe. Before we call the question, oh, you have a question, Angela? No, okay.
No,
Magda, we got the money? I assume she's nodding her head that we got the money, so.
Yes, we do have money, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that's the important part. Okay, call the question, Madam Clerk.
Mayor McPhail?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham?
Yes.
Councillor Tellier?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
yes.
Councillor Rowe?
You bet.
Carried.
Okay. Correspondence, solicitors general, the community safety plan. Anything or how, oh, now I've lost my,
It's
there we
just an update that the dates have been delayed.
yes, it's
Delayed.
been put back.
And it's, I mean, ours is being done through the county, so it doesn't really affect us a ton, but sorry, Councillor, you had a question?
No, I was just going to clarify my understanding that the county does take the lead on this
Yes,
community safety and well-being plan, and they've got a consultant hired to help with that. Is that correct?
yeah, it's being done in conjunction with the city of St. Thomas and the town of Aylmer. So there's so it's been moving forward, I think, fairly satisfactorily, other than the COVID has certainly, like a lot of things, thrown a wrinkle into the progress. So any further questions on that? No action required from it. Minister of the Environment Conservation Authority's working group. Now that they've passed the bill, now they're going to try to figure it out. Only thing that I was a little disturbed with that was that certainly there was no representation from much from Southern Ontario on that working group.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, Bonnie?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that perhaps staff could let us know whenever there's any regulations that are posted so that we can look and see whether we want to have comment on those.
Yeah, when if we get notification for that, I always put it in the correspondence.
Okay.
It's something that I will bring up in my conversations with Yurik's office, that I was a little disappointed in the fact that no one was represented, especially in the fact that conservation authorities are responsible for shoreline on the Great Lakes, and nothing from Huron or from Erie that's represented here. So, all right, next item is Ministry of Transportation OVR update. I guess that's just an FYI, unless anybody has any questions regarding it. Bonnie?
Yeah, just to clarify, Elgin County isn't in the list of municipalities. So does that mean that their roads that are owned by them are not part of this regulation? Or
well, Elgin did pass a resolution, and whether it just didn't get in time or wasn't counted, but they did pass a bylaw to prohibit vehicles on county roads.
Oh, did they? Okay.
I haven't received that yet.
What's that?
They've passed that. We have not received any notice of that.
Yeah, that was passed at a county council meeting. Still with no plan on enforcement. It was just a bylaw that was passed, and what it means or doesn't mean, I don't know. But that was the decision of county council.
Have you been notified of that?
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Because we should really have it and be aware of it, because I'll ask for that.
Okay, Lower Thames Conservation Authority Bill 229 passage. I guess that's something that's out of our control and has been done. So does anybody have any concerns on that?
No.
Okay, Town of Amherstburg development approval for requirement for landfills. How much input do you want neighboring municipalities to have in landfill expansion? I don't think that's going to affect West Elgin. Okay, T. Mansell request for sidewalk extension. What's your thoughts on that, Lee? What's the process? Is that just something that we normally get that comes in as a request and it's dealt with through your department?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that typically does come in. It would come to our department, and we would, review it and look to see if it falls within our plans for our capital sidewalk extensions. So this one has come up in the past. we're actually looking this year to go a bit further with this. So we will, the plan for this year is to extend the sidewalk on Graham Road from the church, which is just south of the high school, down to the corner of Graham and Marsh, and then along Marsh, west along Marsh to Angelo Drive, which is the entrance to Todd Place. There are quite a few families in Todd Place. And so I think, especially with future development, I think that that would be a good section to look at for this year. So that would include Mr. Mansell's request.
Okay. So has anybody responded to Mr. Mansell?
I will respond. We can respond to him, or Lee can, one of the two of us after. He addressed it specifically to council, which is why it needed to, I think because he wanted council to be aware of his ise.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and
I think that it's important. Like it's part of the 2020 budget deliberations. So yeah. once that's approved, then that would go forward.
Okay, Bonnie.
I can see why it kind of probably got left, just because of the way the ground raises up so high there after the church. That's possibly why it just didn't happen originally. The bigger job.
Well, certainly I think that yeah, as it is part of the 2020 budget process, in the short term, that a response to this gentleman, just simply that it under consideration and referred to 2020 budget, and you'll be notified of any decision.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
I just don't want to leave him hanging out there that we haven't responded. Okay, now I've got to warm my. Next item up is McCall Family Farms notice of microcultural license. Culture license. Heather, what do you know about this?
So just to remind council, this should be familiar to you. The McCalls came to us about a year ago for a minor variance to build an accessory building on their property on Furnival Road, on the east side of Furnival, north of the 401. The property is zoned agricultural A3, restricted agricultural, which does permit the cultivation of cannabis. Because if you recall, in 2019, we did a housekeeping amendment to our zoning bylaw to allow for the cultivation of cannabis on agriculturally zoned property. So this is just to notify council, and in case any of your constituents have any questions, you have the information. They're going about this through the legal process.
Wow. Therese.
Through the chair, I'm just wondering, when I read this, all I could think about is when you go in through Talbotville, or when you go through Blenheim and there's all the light pollution. Do we have anything in place for something like that if it got that big?
Yes, we do. We did an amendment. We did an amendment in 2019 as part of our housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw.
Same one. Okay.
Regarding illumination, and it doesn't speak to cannabis. It speaks to all types of uses.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The illumination must be directed down on the property, and that you know they have to follow the requirements.
Okay, Bonnie first, and Angela.
I know the property has an enclosed barn on it. Is that where they're planning to grow it, or are they going to be putting greenhouses as well? Do you know?
Well, there is a hoop greenhouse going up from what I saw the last time. I believe they plan to use both the hoop greenhouse and that building as well, depending upon time of year and what process they're in with the cannabis.
I would think the greenhouse will be for starting plants, and
yeah.
I assume that they will be growing outside. Okay, any other questions on that?
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
I have a question. Heather, can you refresh my memory? My apologies, I didn't get back to read the amendment that we made a couple years ago. Can you refresh my memory the requirements for fencing on the agricultural properties when they're growing cannabis? Are they to put fences up, or are they not? I apologize, I didn't get a chance to go back and look up the changes that we made.
So fencing, so this first of all is a federally licensed site, or will be a federally licensed site. Fencing is not a municipal requirement. It's a federal requirement as part of their licensing. So yes, they will be required to put fencing up as part of the license requirement with the feds.
And the fencing is already in place, and it looks like it's about an 8-foot fence all the way around, so they're in good shape there.
Which is consistent with what I'm seeing on other properties that have been applying for these type of licenses. That's 8 feet seems to be kind of the standard height.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if no further action needs to be taken on that, we'll move on to the next a letter from Robert and Audrey Miller, request to take over the light at the end of Furnival. Certainly that's the light that's there now has been, Millers have put that in, oh gosh, 25, 30 years ago. And with the change at, and Lee will probably be able to expand on this with Alphonse Willie, they had the same type of light there, and it's been taken over by us, I believe, with Ontario Hydro putting the pole up and the light up. Is that how that works, Lee?
No, not entirely correct, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'm glad you're here to straighten us out.
The light, a bit of background, I was approached by Alphonse Willie, who is down at the south end of Douglas line. They had a similar situation where they had a Sentinel. It was the Hydro One Sentinel program from years ago where they would put a yard light in or a light on the pole in your yard, and it was a certain amount. It's it's about $20 a month, I think, is what they charge. Hydro One takes care of the light. If it burns out or if it breaks, they repair it, and it's not metered, so you don't pay any hydro on that. It's just a flat fee per month. So Alphonse had one on his property there, and with the changes there, with a new pole going in for some development in the area, it doesn't make sense for the municipality to take over that existing light and pay that. We would have to pay that $100 or that $20 a month charge, just the same as a homeowner to have that. So in that case there, what we plan on doing is installing an actual street light, an LED street light there on an arm. It is in a good position with the pole. It's just before the end of the street, and that's a busy area with people from the parks taking Douglas Line and going down the old road into the marina. So it makes sense to have something there, but it makes much more sense for us to just put in a new street light and add it to our existing inventory. The payback for that is less than 2 years, even with having to purchase the new light versus continuing to pay that one-off account through Hydro One. So that's what's being done with the pole at the end of Douglas. So Alphonse, they're not going to renew, or they're going to stop paying for that yard light that he had, and a street light will be put on that new pole. So to speak to this letter, like the mayor said, that this request would have been made, or this light would have been put in years ago at the request of the Millers. It is hooked to a hydro pole, which actually sits almost at the lake bank. If you drive down to the end of Furnival Road, when you come to the end, there's guide rail and a big checkerboard sign. Probably 60 feet south of that guide rail, along the west side of the Furnival Road road allowance, kind of at the back corner of the Miller's garage, is where that last hydro pole sits, and that's where that light is on. That's the pole that light is on. So it's lighting up Miller's yard, which is why it was put there originally. That's what it was designed to do at their request. It's not the same situation as the one at Douglas, just because if we were to put a light up to light the street, it wouldn't be on that pole. It would be on a pole that's actually out adjacent to Furnival Road and not way down by the lake. So, I don't think, like I said, it doesn't make sense for us to assume paying that monthly charge on a light that's not even adjacent. It just doesn't make sense to pay that monthly charge. If we were going to do anything, if we were concerned and we wanted a light to light the end of the street, we would put it on a pole that is out along the street and not on that pole that's down at the back of Miller's Garage.
And there's another dusk to dawn light north of the light that we're talking about at Miller's. Is that light also under the same, you know, kind of grandfathered street lighting deal where the homeowner has put that in there on his own, and it hangs right over the road, and more or less it is, you would assume that it was a street light.
That one there, Mr. Mayor, is we're not, it doesn't fall, from what we can see, there's no, it's not a dust, it's not a light that was put there as part of the Sentinel program, because it is on a street light arm, and it is an old Cobra head, which are the street lights from years ago that we replaced back in 2015. They're not very energy efficient, but the best that we can figure is that light was probably put there years ago, back when West Lorne maybe had its own utility still, like the PUC may have put that up years ago, and it, to be quite honest with you, it doesn't show up on our street light inventory. So, you know, it makes, it's just, sorry, I'm talking over you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, so it's one that's, I believe it was probably put there by, the township, or by, you know, we have had a couple of other ones around in the area, more so in West Lorne, that were put up by the old PUC years and years and years ago, and they were just kind of, they've been forgotten about. That light that you're talking about, that's at where Douglas Line comes off of Fernville Road, it's right there kind of at the intersection. That one certainly makes sense to have that there, and it makes sense that it is our light that we look after. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, through the chair, you know, I feel a lot of people go to the end of that road and do the loop around. Once again, we're seeing it more with the COVID restrictions, but even before that, there's lots of people that go down to the end of the road. I do think there is a safety issue there with having that lit so that people can see that if they keep going, they're going to end up in the lake kind of thing. You know, whether we do that with a red light blinking on the checkerboard or actually put a street light there, I do think that we need to consider that. I would be in favor of taking over that light and totally replacing it in a more appropriate location. Is there some advantage to having the whole park area, pavilion area lit a bit, or is that just going to invite activities at night that aren't the best? But I totally agree. The light that's there is too far back to really do a good job of keeping that corner well lit.
Well, it is a Hamlet residential area that it's kind of a high profile deal, and I'm like you, Bonnie, at the end of the road there. Just to tell you a little story, you know, we used to have situations down on Queen Street and Fernville Road years ago where there were a number of accidents because people would miss the stop sign or not be aware of it. So council of the day decided that one of the best things that we could do was to illuminate that intersection, and I don't think that we've had any issues since that time. So from my perspective, I think some consideration should be given to the fact that, once one municipally responsible streetlight on that section, it probably does need another one at the end. And I agree with Lee, taking over that light from Miller's, that doesn't make any sense at all. If they want to continue on paying the Ontario Hydro to light up their yard, that's one thing, but I think that we should accept the responsibility of lighting up the public thoroughfare, especially on a dead end situation like that. And again, if it's bright enough to be able to illuminate some of the park down there all through the summertime, there are residents in the park that quite often maybe can keep an eye on nefarious activities that are going over around the pavilion or the dance pavilion. So I don't know, some consideration. I don't know what it would cost. Maybe we could ask Lee to come back with a report on what it would cost to do something like that, if that's council wishes. What's anybody else say on it? Yes, Bonnie?
And I was just going to add that the street light at the end of Douglas at Furnival there, really we should be looking at switching it to an LED light too, just to try and continue on with our environmentally friendly lightings.
Yeah, one of the other things just on that topic that as we have and maybe it's just the anomaly of the COVID, the number of people that are driving down there, it's not bad on Furnival because there is enough room for people to get turned around. But over on Douglas Street, I did notice that there are a good number of people that decide that they're going to go down and explore this road, even though it says no exit on it. They get down there, and the next thing you know, they're turning around in people's driveways. And at some point in time, we're going to receive complaints about that if this continues on. And has there been any consideration, Lee, given to ensuring that we have enough room at the end of Douglas Street to put a turnaround space in there?
Yeah, we actually had that was raised. Well, that's probably been 4 or 5 years ago now. We actually, that was grass. That used to be grass at the end of Douglas, out to where the guide rail is. And it not only for people turning around, but operationally for us cleaning the snow. We actually dug that grass, that sawed out at the end of Douglas, a large area, the full width of the road allowance, and put gravel in there and built a gravel turnaround there so that we could also get turned around with our snow plows down at the end there. So there is gravel there in place and a spot for people to turn around. Like, short of actually making it paved similar to that at the end of Furnival. But we are able to turn around there with the snow plow at the end of the street now, which is something that we couldn't do before we made those changes a few years back.
It might be a bit obliterated right now because of the construction down there. It's hard to see what is municipal property and what is people's yards.
So how do you want to proceed with this? Do you want Lee to come back with a report as to the potential of putting a permanent street light in at the end of Furnival Road and updating the existing light that's there now and making it a energy efficient light?
Yes, I would say yes.
Also, either Lee or I draft a letter. I can draft it and have Lee sign it to send to the Millers, basically saying the location's not conducive to municipal uses. However, council will be considering the option of adding a street light to the Furnival Road allowance.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, then the onus is up to them. If the current light, is necessary for their own property, they can leave the light there. Or if it works out that the street light is sufficient, well, then they can make that decision. Those type of dusted on line lights are quite coveted because that's an old agreement with Ontario Hydro, and I know years ago they come and they took mine away on me. I forget what was going on. We were doing some work on the pole, and so you know, it's something that they can make their decision on. But I do think that we do have a responsibility to properly light a residential area like that. So we'll wait on your report, Lee.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add something, could we have it, could we include this request as a part of our budget deliberations next week?
Sure.
Okay.
You've been pretty quiet today. Must be that home environment. You must be quite relaxed in that home.
I have to behave.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, we'll refer that into the budget deliberations, and then Lee and the Mac can work their magic. Okay, is that it for correspondence? Do you need a resolution, Madam Clerk? Of any kind, or has it all been handled?
It's all been handled with staff direction.
Okay, well, then we're going to move on to council inquiries and announcements. Notice of motion. Anybody have a notice of motion? Seeing none, statements and inquiries by councilors. Yes.
I just have an inquiry. We were talking about down at the marina earlier, and I was just going to email Lee this, but I see our busy little beavers are back at it down there, and I wondered also about Gib Line, if we have been monitoring that. And it also triggered that thought when I looked at that we paid somebody before Christmas, I believe, to look after some beavers there, somewhere in the municipality. I saw a payment to that gentleman. So I'm just wondering about the beaver situation in West Elgin. Was chickens now 2020? Tress is wondering about beavers.
It running rampant.
Yeah, they've made a lot of damage. I think they've been eating even the fence poles from what I saw for the little bit I was down there, making my drive like everybody else in West Elgin to stare at the lake because there's nothing to do.
Yeah. Actually, Tom could speak more to it. Most of the trapping that was done in 2020 was at the request of the drainage department, obviously, for municipal drains. We still did have some sites ongoing. Councillor Cameron had sent me an email about some that have been busy down her road on Argyle line. So that situation was already being addressed. They removed some, and they feel that there's some more there. We have had over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a large increase in the number of beavers in the municipality, in the drainage system. Gib Line was an example. They had a culvert blocked, which caused flooding across the road. Obviously, a lot of people have seen that they've taken down all the little poplar trees along the west side of the parking area at the marina. So we are working there. You will continue to see bills come across through your package for removal of those, and through the course of this year, probably the better part of this year.
Has this always been a problem?
Okay.
Sorry. Typically we've always had one or maybe one or two a year. In different, we do West Elgin. We're blessed with a lot of open drains, a lot of large creeks and ditches and things like that run through the municipality. So it's a great environment, and we have a lot of tree cover too. So it's a good environment for them. But yeah, we've certainly seen, quite an increase over the last year or so in the activity.
Right.
Through the chair, I just wondered if, are they live trapped, Lee?
Correct.
And relocated somewhere?
I believe so, yes.
Probably down Argyle line.
Just keep them away from Queen Line.
Do you think there's any problem if we could genetically modify the beavers to have a appetite for Phragmites? It would be a wonderful thing.
It would be.
Angela.
Through the chair, they took down some fairly large trees on our road. My husband was actually wondering if the roads crew took down some of the bigger trees along the road line, if that would stop the beavers from doing that. But I'm a big fan of keeping trees, so that was a bit of a heated discussion in our home. I didn't know what your thoughts were to help with the beaver issue. So
yeah, I'm with you. I don't like the idea of preemptively removing trees just in the off chance that the beaver decides to set its sights on one. So we'll just, we'll continue to monitor the areas and, remove them as we come across it.
Okay, any other statements, inquiries? Yes, Bonnie?
A couple of things I wanted to say, and Lee reminded me that with regard to Phragmites, the government is now in the process of approving a spray that can be used over water for invasive species. So that's a really good step, and it's up for public comment right now on their site, but they've been able to do that in the States for a little while now, so I'm really pleased that that step is being taken. So that might give us an option in the future for some of the Phragmites that are around our creeks and drainage ditches and things like that. The other thing I wanted to mention, as you probably see in West Lorne, the little she shed has been erected for testing of COVID. The funds which came from, I'm assuming, both Dutton Dunwich and West Elgin for that. And our good friend Joy Scaife is the person that's doing the testing there. And actually they're testing about 50 people a day there. So that just gives you some sense of the fact that people are having contacts around our area that are being told to go and get tested. So that's an important point that we all need to keep in mind as we complain about all of these shutdowns. The one thing that you can't get there is you can't get a COVID test if you're going to go on vacation. You have to go to a clinic or pharmacy, drugstore, or a Shoppers or whatever, and you're going to pay about $200 for that. So that's a good deterrent.
Okay, anything else? I just have one. We have a Southwest Public Health teleconference coming up at 1 o'clock. It's been certainly just recently brought to my attention that individuals that could be positive for COVID-19 are designated by their postal code. Which concerns me a little bit, that we could have individuals working within our municipality that test positive for COVID. They are counted on someone else's dashboard. Say if they come from, if they test positive and they live in Chatham-Kent, they will show up on Chatham-Kent's dashboard as a positive case. So, in our situation, myself especially, my postal code is Middlesex County, out of Wardsville. So I think in Western Elgin here we do have Bothell, we do have Highgate, and we do have West Elgin. So I want to ask the medical officer of health today, how does that work? If someone is working in our municipality that comes from somewhere else that tests positive for COVID, is our health unit aware of it or not? So it's kind of a little unnerving that this could be happening. Angela.
Can you ask the question, because I have heard that the contract tracers are not able to fully trace anymore. They're so far behind that they are relying on the individuals to do contract tracing now, which, I mean, let's be honest, there are people that are not going to do that. I have concerns that not everybody potentially is being notified that maybe they've been exposed. I've had a resident contact me that their employer didn't notify them that they potentially have been exposed. And it's because the contract tracers, there was over 100 potential exposures in a workplace and they didn't have enough people to call everybody.
Magna, you can jump in here, but I think that the Southwest Public Health is absolutely overwhelmed. And I don't think that the contract tracing is taking place like it was when the numbers were a lot less. And, it's just the reality that we have to do what we can do to try to mitigate the spread of this. And I don't think that we can rely on the resources of Southwest Public Health to keep a lid on it. Teresa.
Through the chair, in all your calls over the past, I've lost track of how many months, I guess we're into 10 months. Have you, Magda, or anyone heard about an employer's responsibility to let employees know over a certain amount of positives within their workplace?
I think,
or where would I find that info? If not, if you haven't heard about it.
I can't speak to that. I know that it does come under the Ministry of Labor, Health and Safety, and I would imagine that there are protocols that are in place to cover that. Maybe your first stop would be a call to the Ministry of Labor and ask them just exactly what the protocols are. Magda?
I don't know if Magda does, but I literally, as you were talking, got an update from the province on increasing workplace inspections. And one of the quick facts says, even if an illness is not definitively contracted at work, employers are reminded they are required to report an illness in the workplace in COVID-19 or report a claim of any occupational illness with the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. And all cases of COVID-19 must be reported to the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development and the Workplace's Joint Health and Safety Committee representatives and all trade unions. So that's...
There's a lot of your answer right there, Teresa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And failure to follow these rules could result in prosecution and up to jail's time for the heads of businesses.
Is there any way, Jana, that you can send that to me?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you send that to all of council? Because I wonder if we got the same call from the resident, but yeah, that's the information.
Mine wasn't a resident. It was someone that, well, I guess they just work somewhere around here and they're worried.
Yeah, so and then there's on the bottom, they just released some posters that while we were in the meeting, we sent to staff to have put up in the break rooms and lunchrooms. It looks like, and there are guidance for employers around the rules during breaks and lunches that they were requesting that we put up. So I've sent that out.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Question and timely information.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Okay. I guess no matters of urgency other than to get this meeting over with. Okay, we're at bylaws. Madam Chair, or Madam Clerk, I'll turn this over to you for...
The bylaw 2020-01 being a bylaw to appoint a committee of adjustment be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Tellier. Call the question.
Mayor McPhail?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham?
Yes.
Councillor Tellier?
Yes.
Councillor Cammert?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yep.
Carried. So that bylaw, the next one is bylaw 2021-02 Municipal Transit Enhanced Cleaning Fund Agreement. That bylaw 2020-02 being a 2021-02 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment between a transfer payment agreement for the Municipal Transit Enhanced Cleaning between Her Majesty the Queen Right in Ontario, represented by the Minister of Transportation, and the Corporation of the Municipality of West Elgin be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Cammert. Call the question, please.
Mayor McPhail?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham?
Yes.
Councillor Tellier?
Yes.
Councillor Cammert?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
That is carried. We're now on to the confirming bylaw. So that bylaw 2021-03 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on January 14th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder, please. Latham and Tellier, call the question, please.
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tellier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes, and before we close, I'd like to say thank you to all the staff for all the extra work in doing more reviewing of regulations for COVID. We really appreciate that.
Okay, so now we are, that Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 12:53 p.m. to meet as Committee of the Whole at 9:30 a.m. on January 21st, 2020, or at the call of the chair.
One question, how do we pick up our budget?
Meg, did you want to answer it?
There will be no hard copies available. You will receive electronic copy of the budget in PDF file by Tuesday morning at the latest.
Okay.
Okay. As
Will it
you know,
be 8.5 by 11 format that I can print out?
I guess the issue here is we have limited staff working in the office. If you request printed copies, I can do that for any council members. It's not going to be nicely organized in the bind. It's just going to be printed PDF file, if that's okay with you.
Do you guys all have your binders at home? It's the same tabs. You can just take out last year's and put in this year's if you want. We'll just have to arrange. If you want to do that, I can probably do the delivery of them or something.
I can look after the delivery.
Yeah, you're there with the, yeah, we can set, because
Emily and I are here. We can look after getting them printed and I can get them out.
I would really appreciate that too. It's easier for me to compare them to last year and so on.
Okay.
I think it would be almost impossible to follow along without a hard copy.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to read and.
Sorry to make extra work.
Yeah, no, so we'll try to get them out by Tuesday noon, if that's okay with council.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can come and pick it up, but as long as someone leaves it outside the building.
I'm totally fine if I find it in my mailbox.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think it's probably safer if.
You're gonna porch drop it?
Better, yeah, it's better if I just put them in the truck and just go around and drop them off versus everybody having to come here.
Yeah, less people on the roads.
As we're all supposed to be home in the first place, but if you find that there's nobody here, just put it in the back door.
Just leave it by the front door, Lee.
Okay, so I need the mover and seconder for the adjourn the meeting.
Adjournment. Mover and seconder for adjournment. Moved by Tellier, seconded by Rowe. Please call the question.
Mayor McPhail,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latham,
Yes.
Councillor Tellier,
Yes.
Councillor Cameron,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
You bet.
and that is carried.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for the meeting. I think we've had a good morning, and stay safe.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.